Welcome to Bad Wrench Automotive. All right, so we are here with our Nissan Pathfinder project, and we're going a little bit deeper. So we need to remove this upper intake. What we're going to do is pull all the bolts for it. I will be doing a separate video on that. Basically, I'm breaking down why I'm pulling this intake manifold in order to get at the valve covers. The reason we have to go this deep with it is the intake manifold sits over the top of one of the valve covers. The valve covers are leaking really bad. I'm going to show you guys in this video exactly what I'm talking about. Let me get you underneath and we'll take a look. Okay, so the reason we're replacing is you see all that oil underneath there. That means that these valve cover gaskets have gone bad. We need to pull this valve cover off. When we do that, we're going to put new coils in it right away with new plugs. But on this side of the engine, guys, everything is buried by this intake manifold. So this intake manifold has to come off. We're going to have two bolts, one right here by the red part of my light, another one back on the back side here, which is a little harder to see. Right about there. And then all of our bolts are right along here. So here's where all of our bolts are. We also have ones in between the galleys here. And then we have one back here and one back here. We also pulled all of our brackets. We had bolt here for these two for the vacuum boost. That comes around. This is going to come off with the vehicle. We had a vacuum breather hose that had to come off. We removed our throttle body because we are replacing this throttle body. And I am putting new bolts on the throttle body because the old throttle body bolts are bad. Again, I talked about this with the ground. If you guys have a bad ground, you're going to notice that all your metal bolts will corrode really fast. And that is done because you're not grounding the engine properly. So there is a condition where all of your metals start to rust and deteriorate faster than what they should because your engine's not properly grounded, and it's an electrolysis process. Back here we have a sensor that I had to remove right underneath there. We had this bracket to remove. There was two bolts on that bracket. That removed that from the intake. Then I also had this hose here that I had to remove. There may be something else on the back side here, guys, but that is clipped in right there on the intake manifold. So make sure you guys get that stuff unhooked before you just lift and pull this intake manifold off. Now, when we put this back together, we're going to have a new gasket here, and we're going to have new gaskets here all the way down. These are going to get new gaskets. They come as a double set. So there's three of them, and then there's the throttle body gasket is how they come. Always use new gaskets, never reuse rubber gaskets, guys. Honestly, anyone who reuses rubber gaskets is doing shoddy work. And this is a way to tell. If you take a vehicle in and have a throttle body replaced and they do not put a new gasket on it, they're doing shoddy work. The reason for that is they're trying to cut corners and trying to save money. Sometimes that gasket will appear on the invoice even though it didn't get replaced. Other times they just won't replace it because they're being lazy. Honestly, not all throttle bodies come with gaskets, so it is an additional part that they have to know how to order and actually order it. But to be honest with you, it's one of these things that if somebody has done enough of these projects, they'll know that they need to put a new gasket in it. The reason why is if you don't replace it, what can happen is you'll get a vacuum leak there. A vacuum leak means that air is being sucked in and not metered by the engine. That metering is done by either a mass airflow sensor or a MAP sensor. If it's being done by a mass airflow sensor, it meters the air right out of the air box. So you'll have your air box right here, and then you'll have a sensor that sits somewhere along here that it meters the air going into the engine. If it reads, or if it catches air after the reading, it's not going to read right, and you're going to wind up with a lean motor. Lean motor means that basically you're burning up your engine. We noticed this on LS Goat when we did the mass airflow sensor on that vehicle. Now, why am I talking about mass airflow sensors? Because if you do this project wrong, your mass airflow sensor will catch your mistakes. It will tell you, hey, you're pulling too much air and I can't put enough fuel to this engine. The reason it does that is because it will automatically get the air, but it can't compensate for the amount of fuel that it needs to dump in. That is how you tell if you have an intake manifold leak. Usually you can catch those on scan tools if they're really good. Otherwise, you need to know how to read the metadata while you're doing your live data pulls. And you can see when you have a rich or lean condition. Stoichiometric is 14.7 to 1. That's what you really strive for, but anything basically above 13, 13 and a half, you can kind of call that a success. I mean, you're running a little lean, but not lean enough to do damage to the motor. Once you get below 13, you start running the risk of damaging an engine. If you're ever around 11, you're not good. You're running extremely rich, dumping a lot of fuel, can cause a lot of problems. Now on the adverse side, if you're up around 17, 18 on the stoichiometric, you're pulling way more air than what you need to. So those are ways that you can tell what's going on. But guys, if you find this information helpful and you guys want to see more projects like this on this Nissan Pathfinder, make sure you guys are hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, and ringing that notification bell so you get notified when I drop new videos. In the next video, guys, I'm going to take this intake off. I will show you the intake, but then I'm also going to show you what we need to remove in order to do these valve covers. And I'll see you on the next one.